Lexus RX, an SUV regarded as the car that started the crossover/SUV era. Essentially, the only SUVs you could buy before the Lexus RX. I mean, there were ones before the Lexus RX, but the Lexus RX made it popular. It's kind of like Tesla, right? Were there EVs before Tesla? Yes, the GM EV1. Does that mean that they were very popular and or started the trend? No. This car had such modern soapbox styling. Remember, this is the 90s. Remember the 90s SUVs? They were nothing like this, right? It was that soapy, usual SUV. It was comfortable on the road, right? Everyone wanted one of these. It was kind of like the Prius, except they didn't have to pay celebrities to buy these, right? People loved these, and this would definitely determine the future of the car industry. But this thing's success, it led to a few other vehicles. The Toyota RAV4, this is actually the second generation. The first generation is very hard to find photos of. Just one of the most classic SUVs ever, just, this cute little roadworthy thing. The Honda CR-V, these smaller, useful vehicles, right? But their main job, it's not to go off-roading, it's not to do stuff like that. And while they can be used for that, it's mainly to be on the road, right? This is the beginners of the crossover craze. Now, does that mean they're bad off-road? No, they're just better on-road than I would say they are off-road. Doesn't mean these are bad off-road. These are actually amazing off-road. This was back in the 90s, early thousands. This was their idea of an on-road SUV. Nowadays, our crossovers would cry. I know. We've all had a crossover at one point. Our respective crossovers. My Prius would cry if I took it on a dirt road, much less any sort of trail or anything, right? But at the same time, the company still had their big SUVs. Honda had the Passport, grrr, and Toyota had the 4Runner, grrr, right? They still had their big, clunky, gigantic, actual off-road SUVs, and then they had these, which was, their younger counterparts that were more for on-roading, right? So you kind of get the idea. So why are we here to talk about these vehicles? Well, when any new trend happens, there's always sort of a counterweight, right? If anything swings, there's always a direction pulling it in the opposite direction. And we've seen this before, like in the hybrid era. Car companies really don't know what to do. They have to guesstimate. In the hybrid era, Honda said, it's weird enough. What we're going to do, we're going to make it ultra weird. Two-door sports car, put a manual in it. Toyota went for practical. Toyota won that one. So this time car companies, remember, this was before the hybrid wars. They didn't want to play it, they wanted to play it safe. They wanted to come out with two models of each. One that would be what they thought was going to succeed based off the RX and other models like it, the gigantic success of these roadworthy crossover-like SUVs, right? And then other ones that would be more durable off-road, yet still smaller to fit the current trend, right? And that's how we got these weird little cars. The Honda Element is a weird car. The Toyota FJ Cruiser is a weird car, and the Nissan X-Terra is a weird car. Now, when I talk about these cars today, I'm going to be talking about them in an elective, just in general statements. Keep in mind, I would say the X-Terra is, it's kind of like vowels, sometimes but not always, right? The Nissan X-Terra wasn't a lot like these other cars, but they had a lot of similarities when I actually get into talking about, why they were made, why the companies designed these in the first place. And, with Nissan, it kind of fits in, the puzzle piece kind of fits, but it doesn't really, the Nissan X-Terra is the one that fits the least out of the story that I'm trying to convey here with these three cars. So, just to describe how it went, right, Toyota, they had the RAV4, right, this, tiny little, on-road SUV, and they were the ones that made the original Lexus, so they had a leg up. They thought, what if people, they don't want these on-road SUVs, they want something off-road, big and clunky. So they went for the Toyota FJ Cruiser, bringing back a classic name that was used in the Land Cruisers for a bit, right? This was not about practicality, this was for off-road. The reason why it's short, it's not so that you can store big stuff in it, it's so that when you're climbing over rocks, you have better ground clearance, right? It has big wheels and the bumper only comes up to here, because when you're approaching a rock, if you have a gigantic bumper that hangs all the way down, I don't care how big the grill is, it's not going to be good for off-roading, right? Honda went for, practicality, right? With the Insight, they went kind of wild. This time they went more practical. These cars came out at the same time. The Insight came out a few years before the Element. And they had seen the failure with the Insight, so they went to go, they saw Toyota do this radical decision, which is what they did before. And then this time they were going to play the Toyota car. They were going to be the practical, reliable, just still crazy. I mean, the real identifier you can see here is the half door, right? Remember, These were shorter, in some cases, just for lightability, towability, the less weight that the car has, the more it can tow, depending on the engine and stuff like that, And Toyota did it so that it was just shorter to climb over rocks, right? And then the Nissan X-Terra was designed like this. Remember, Nissan, Datsun, really, they were always like a car manufacturer. They weren't really truck manufacturers. That's the same about Toyota. Go to Toyota, before the Tacoma and Tundra came out, you had the Toyota pickup and you had like the Nissan pickup, but they weren't like one of those brands. Like GM, they're a very heavy SUV brand, even in the 90s, with the Tahoe, all that stuff. Nissan, this was pretty much Nissan's only SUV other than the big one. That's, you get it, right? The really big one? The Pathfinder. The Pathfinder was the other one. This was the smaller one. And yeah, so these cars were all weird in their respective different ways, right? Nissan went for a little bit of both. Nissan played it safe. Excellent storage space, not really made for off-roading. It can do off-roading if you need it to, and it's going to be practical, right? In off-road tier, it goes the FJ, this one, and then the Element, right? Now, there are off-road elements, like, seriously, I mean, look at that thing. Who doesn't want to own it? I would totally love to own that. Anyway, a different story for a different time. Essentially, things were going very well. Now, let's talk about the eras at which this came out. The Nissan X-Terra was the first to come out at 2000. The year 2000, Nissan said, you want to know what we're seeing, this SUV trend? Boom, we've got this, right? And I believe the Rogue wasn't out yet. The Rogue is a very new model. So this was the only guy, right? So it doesn't have the other counterparts like Honda and Toyota have with the CR-V and the RAV4. Just to, keep that in mind, right? So first it came out in 2000. Honda came out with the Element in 2001. And Toyota, they were cooking up something special in this crock pot, right? Remember, these car companies already know what they're doing 10 years ahead of time before we know, and they already know what the other car companies are doing probably 5 years before they even know what they're doing. So Honda definitely knew about the FJ Cruiser, and that something from Toyota was coming. They decided to play it safe, learning from the inside. Toyota came out with the FJ Cruiser in 2006. So the FJ Cruiser is kind of like the baby. As the years went on for 2006, the X-Terra was refreshed. This looks more like a more 90s design, you can see there. This looks more like an Isuzu than a Nissan. This is that classic, we've all seen one of these. Dwight even had one. Did Dwight have one? Did Ryan have one? I love The Office. Andy had the X-Terra, and it fits him very well. Those are the people that drive X-Terras. Big plasticky bumper, bumping other cars out of the mud, right? That's just exactly what it's designed for. The Honda Element, Honda had kind of realized, first of all, I think this Honda Element just looks better. I love the gray. I love the dark green, mud, dirt paint color with the plastic cladding. I've always loved the Honda Element. Out of these three cars, I'd buy the Element. But they kind of changed it. Honda knew that actually, this was winning, and people didn't really, we love them today, but back then this wasn't really what I would call a smashing success. So they tried to make it more roadworthy. They painted it all one color, got rid of the plastic cladding, gave it normal CR-V wheels, and they just tried to make it as less weird as they possibly could to fit in with their other lineup for the years that it would succeed on, right? And then let's move into 2010, right? Because we've already seen the 2006 FJ, because it came out that year, right? 2010, Honda with the Element, they've given it even more normal wheels, still painted, still orange was the still color. They just gave it some new technology inside, if you got a nice one. That's pretty much it. The FJ Cruiser pretty much stayed the same. No updates to the FJ. People love the FJ. It was a success for the most part. And the X-Terra got ever more Pathfinder-ish than ever. Just a very nice, attractive SUV. I actually thought these looked very good, and I'm not a Nissan person, right? So, when did they die? Because we're getting up on their death, By this time, the companies had realized, no, Nissan was already working on the Rogue. They had realized people want small, roadworthy SUVs. They don't want these big things. Honda realized early in, 2006, people would rather just have a normal road SUV than something ultra-rugged. Toyota realized that, they're costly to make. With emission standards, it's very hard to put out, and there's enough used for people that want them can just buy used. So Toyota decided to cut this, and the X-Terra didn't really fit in with the Nissan lineup. Like I said, they're a car manufacturer. When you think of Nissan, you don't think of X-Terra, even though it's an awesome vehicle. You think of Sentra, Maxima, Altima. That's what you think of, right? So when did they die? Well, first to die was the Honda Element. In 2011, Honda said, we've seen enough of the Element. Goodbye, good riddance. They washed their hands of it. And this was the final Element. Very sad to see. I actually like the hubcaps more than the 6-spoke wheels. Just putting that out there, Honda. They killed it. It was gone. It's sad. The next one to go was the FJ Cruiser. In 2014, Toyota said, You want to know, we're working on a new, RAV4 model. We've already, no, sorry, timelines. We've already put out the new, RAV4 rugged thing, and we're just going to cancel this. And then the last one, a year after the FJ, Nissan killed off the X-Terra. They said, it was great, but, it was great while it lasted, but it's over now. So why should you care about any of these vehicles? Because they're still amazing to this day. If you can find a used FJ, remember, this is $40,000. You can get, clean ones for $29,000, $30,000. This is definitely the most popular, just because, off-road rugged. Those are the two words that describe this. Completely off-road, completely rugged. It's like my Prius, right? My Prius is specifically designed to be good at good gas mileage. It's not great at off-road. It's not great on dirt roads. It's not great with traction. It is just designed to be like, I like to imagine it as like a little frog that just hugs the road. That's what my car's designed to be. This is the opposite of that. It's designed to get, off-road, and it gets terrible gas mileage, right? That's why I drive a Prius, because I live in Florida, and that's why people that live in Oregon and Maine drive this, right? People love these. These are great. If you can find one of these, it'll last you your entire lifetime. These are so amazing. The interiors were so durable. These cars are just always amazing and fantastic. Of course, we've got the Element. This is a manual, front-wheel drive manual. They did have all-wheel drive. All-wheel drives are more expensive. I'm sure you caught the price down there. $7,000. I mean, you can find these for like $2,000, $3,000, the earlier versions. Pick them up. If you're looking for a first car in like high school or college, I would kill to have this thing. It's great off-road, your friends, it'll fit your friends in there. It's great. These get a pretty good gas mileage, and there's no really common problem. With every single car, with most Nissan models, it's the CVT, with Kias, it's wiring, with Mitsubishi, it's usually their shitty CVT or MyVec engines. This doesn't really have, like the Hail Mary issue. This doesn't really have something big that it's notorious for. Not bad. The Prius is known for water pump issues. That specific 4th generation of Camry is known for water pump. This one doesn't really have like a Hail Mary issue that you're going to get, right? These have some problems, but pretty typical, right? And then, of course, you have your Nissan X-Terra. These have also held their value very well. This is $16,000. If you were looking at an FJ Cruiser, an X-Terra is not going to be as great off-roading, but it's still going to be fantastic and great. That plastic bumper, everything in this is built for durability, and these are amazing. Shout out to this absolutely awesome, I mean, come on, whoever converted this to off-road is an absolute legend. Forget the Jeeps. This car deserves all the decals. I love this car. I would 100% buy this car. I love the gold. I think the gold is just so great. I love the leather interior. I love this car. This is probably my favorite car I've ever came across. With the blue interior, too, with the wacky... I want it so bad. Anyway, with that, thank you for watching. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time. Oh, I'm turning into Dang Pod.